Hello, Johannes here. Today I will walk you through the updates and improvements in SQL Spreads 7.8. In this new version, we've added support for keeping Excel table filters. Previously, they were cleared every time you refresh the data from SQL Server. We've also added support for default values on SQL Server columns. So now SQL Spreads will handle the default values and apply them to your spreadsheet. We have simplified the handling and use of SQL Server temporal table or system version table. We've also extended the change tracking. So now it supports user principal name when you're working with Azure ID or Entra ID. For the data processing scripts, we have added syntax highlighting or color coding for the SQL query, so it will be easier to read and easier to work with. To update to the latest version, go into the SQL Spreads tab in Excel, go to the Help menu, then select Check for Updates, and you can download the latest version. Run the installer and it will detect if you have an existing installation and then upgrade to the latest version. Okay, let's take a closer look at each improvement. To keep the Excel table filters and the sorting has been a long-running request from customers. Previously, when you add sorting or filters applied to the Excel table, those are the filters that you add in the header in the Excel table. Once you refresh the data from SQL Server, all those filters and the sorting were cleared out, so you had to reapply them again. In 7.8, SQL Spreads now keeps the filters for text and number columns, as well as all the sorting when you refresh the data from SQL Server. And for the temporal table or system version table, which is a feature in SQL Server that will keep a full audit trail of all your changes on a table, there we have simplified in SQL Spreads, so it's much easier to work with. You can easily select a table and it will automatically load without having to do any configuration. And we also improved the SQL Server tools. So you can now take an Excel table, convert it into a system version table in SQL Server. Previously, it just created a normal table, but now there is an option to make it a system version table by default. And we also have the SQL Server tool where you can go in and modify an existing table. There, you can convert an existing table into a temporal table by just clicking a button. So that's super easy to work with if you would like to either take an existing Excel table and move it into a temporal table in SQL Server, or if you would like to convert an existing table in SQL Server to be a temporal or system version table. SQL Spreads has for a long time supported change tracking when you're updating and inserting data. So it can write the Windows login name and a timestamp into columns in SQL Server, and you can do it when a row was updated or when a row was inserted. In this new release, we have also added support for inserting the user principal name instead of the Windows login name. So if you're connected using Azure ID or Entra ID, you can now use the user principal name in the change tracking. We've also improved the data processing script by adding syntax highlighting. The data processing scripts are data manipulation scripts that you can run either before data is loaded from the SQL database into Excel, or just after data from Excel has been saved back to the SQL database. Or you can also let a user to run it by pressing a button to execute a SQL query to start a job or do some data manipulation. Sometimes this script can be a little longer, and to simplify readability and editing of those scripts, we have added color coding or syntax highlighting, so they will be much easier to work with within SQL Spreads. We've also added support for default values on columns in SQL Server. So if you're inserting a new row into your SQL database from Excel, now the default value in the database will be applied if you leave that column blank. We've also done a couple of security updates, stability improvements, and also a couple of minor usability fixes. If you found this helpful, like the video and subscribe, and you will get more tips on how you can use Excel to update data in your SQL database.